An all-out discussion on this huge victory for the Milwaukee Bucks is none other than sports writer Josh Planos. Josh is back live from Nebraska. Josh, good evening to you there, my friend.
Thanks so much for having me, Andre.
Here we are, Bucks in 6. Did you mention that? But Josh, you said Bucks.
It may have been one of my predictions.
Okay. Josh, you thought this was gonna go to a Game 7, but the Bucks got the job done at home, which we were talking about it, that if you're Milwaukee, you just have to wrap it up at home rather than going back to Phoenix for Game 7. Talk about this Game 6 win for Milwaukee and how the Bucks did it, and just overall how historic this is for Milwaukee fans worldwide.
Andre, let's remember that if Kevin Durant's foot is 1 inch shorter, the Bucks might not have even made it to the finals to have this opportunity. But that's kind of the NBA postseason we're talking about, where the smallest breaks have led to a new champion that, frankly, nobody expected heading into the postseason. Giannis was a Hall of Famer in Game 6. The crucible, the NBA Finals, is where players' games wither under the bright lights. But for Giannis, it was absolutely where his blossomed. A 50-piece to close out the series, to win a championship. I mean, I'm not sure that you could ask more from a player. And, Phoenix blew a ton of opportunities, unfortunately, but the Bucks are champions. And I'm not sure anyone could have guessed it at the start of the playoffs.
Man, we'll get to Giannis in a bit. There's a lot of time. I don't think 30 minutes is enough time to talk about how incredible Giannis's career has been. But unbelievable crowd there in Milwaukee, 17,000 inside the Pfizer Forum. That's just inside the stadium. But how about the 65,000 people outside at Deer District? Made me want to be there. And it's like New Year's Eve or something. The city of Milwaukee just turning things up for the Bucks here. What can you say about the support of the, forever loyal fans of take a look at that on our screen, 70,000 people.
Well, I mean, for one, I hope those fans were vaccinated, because that's a lot of people in close proximity screaming for the Bucks to win their first title in nearly half a century. They look like they were having a fantastic time, as well they should. I'm surprised you couldn't hear them all the way in the Philippines. They no doubt played a huge role in this series. I'm sure the building was shaking inside and out. You could really feel truly over the TV set how much the city wanted a championship, and the Bucks delivered it for them.
Let's talk about the Greek Freak now. He was just an absolute beast, monster, dominant force, everything you want to describe Giannis. His NBA cards, by the way, the value is skyrocketing right now, and why not? 50 points in Game 6, 14 rebounds. He was 17 of 19 from the line. A historic performance here for the Greek Freak. He also had 5 blocks to seal the title for Milwaukee. What was it like for you, Josh, personally seeing this performance from Giannis? You've been covering sports, basketball, the NBA for so long, but to see a beast like Giannis, a force like Giannis, because he really saved the best for last year.
Yeah, Andre, we've really run out of adjectives to describe his performance, but I'll try to put it like this. To play your greatest game in your most significant moment is greatness. To drop a 50-piece in a closeout game 2 weeks after your knee looked like a flamingo's is greatness. To be nails at the free throw line where you were roundly mocked by hundreds of thousands of fans throughout the postseason is greatness. And to do this for a city that drafted you, for the franchise that you remained loyal to despite obvious issues of market size and personnel, that is greatness. And so we were all witnesses to Giannis in Game 6, and that's a game I'll remember for the rest of my life.
Giannis, just 26 years old. He's listed at 6'11", but I don't believe that. Maybe with shoes. He's, a 7-footer. 15th overall pick in 2013. A team that gambled on him, trusted him. And Giannis was putting up big numbers consistently throughout the finals in 6 games. He averaged 35 points, as you can see on your screens right now. 13 boards per game and close to 2 blocks. Bucks coach Mike Budenholzer has said it's now hard to find more words to describe what Giannis does. But what can you say about Giannis and what he did overall in the finals and the development, this kid from Greece. And now just dominating and eating everybody in the finals and winning a title for a small market city like Milwaukee.
It was unbelievable. I think Giannis already now has a place in the pantheon of NBA legends. He's going to retire, like you mentioned, Andre, is probably the best player development story in the history of the league, and potentially as the best international player of all time. Now, he still has a ways to go to catch, players like Dirk Nowitzki and Hakeem Olajuwon who have that longevity, but he's well on his way. Remember that this guy came into the league at the age of 19, having only started playing basketball 7 years prior. So 14 years into learning this sport, he's the third person ever to win regular season MVP, finals MVP, and defensive player of the year. That's phenomenal company. You're talking about Michael Jordan
Hakeem Olajuwon
in the same sentence. So that stat line is unprecedented, and it's one of the greatest final efforts of all time.
I still don't believe that he had that hyper-extended knee. Maybe they just downplay that, or maybe he's just not human after all. But we can't find enough words for Giannis. Let's not forget when Giannis, you mentioned, he came into this league, he didn't even know where his next meal would come from. He came from humble beginnings. Giannis said his mom was even selling stuff on the streets. And now look at the guy. Talk about how remarkable now Giannis's journey has been. And he's a good family man to his brothers. He has a kid now. And do you have Giannis now on top of LeBron as the best player in the NBA?
I still have him a rung below LeBron, but I will say that his story is the kind that you make movies about. It's not terribly dissimilar to, say, Manny Pacquiao's rags to riches story, an athlete paving his own way to greatness. It really is a testament to the power of sport that this man, who was essentially a street beggar for a good period of time, is now, one of the most famous athletes after this finals experience, one of the most famous athletes in the world. So, what a testament to the power of sport, and what a great opportunity for the NBA to grow its global footprint.
Well, one thing's for sure, when LeBron calls it quits, the NBA is in good hands with this guy, the Greek freak, and, Giannis, of course, a good role model as well, and an entertaining social media personality. Of course, Giannis wasn't the only guy. We can talk about Giannis for forever, but let's talk about the other guys who stuck it out with the Bucks through the good times and the bad. We got Chris Middleton, and what a journey as well for this guy. He was drafted 39th overall back in 2012, had to play in the G League for a bit, then stuck it with the Bucks for 8 years. Now he's an NBA champion, and Chris Middleton really stepped up in the finals as well. We'll take a look at his numbers in just a bit. 24 points, there it is. 6 boards, 5 dimes per game in the NBA Finals. Your thoughts on Chris Middleton and how he has played his part with Giannis and this Bucks team, who are now NBA champions?
Yeah, Andre, if you remember, after they got bounced in the Eastern Conference semis by the Miami Heat last year, it was a consensus opinion that Middleton just couldn't be the second best player on a championship team. A good player nonetheless, but he wasn't going to be a player who was going to be hoisting any trophies anytime soon. He had withered under the spotlight in that series and in the previous postseason as well. And it looked like Giannis might be on the way out too. Now, fast forward to today, he's a champion. He's about to play for the U.S. Olympic team. And even though he struggled a little bit in Game 6, he probably hit the biggest shot of the game, that curl jumper to put the Bucks up 102-96 with less than a minute to go. He was a closer all postseason long, and he closed the show in Game 6. And what a phenomenal story in his own right. Like you mentioned, to go from the G League to NBA champion is no small feat. And I think a lot of players can look up to a story like that.
Coach Mike Budenholzer had that moment with Giannis where he said that they're going to do this again. Coach Bud, of course, wanted to continue the streak. I think his job was almost in jeopardy if they didn't win the title, but they're already looking at going back-to-back here. Josh, I know it's still early. They're about to have their parade in Milwaukee, but what do you think are the team's chances of defending their crown next season? As we know, Golden State waiting for Klay to come back. LeBron's going to come back with a vengeance. Brooklyn. But what do you think about Milwaukee's chances of having back-to-back titles in the NBA?
Yeah, it remains to be seen whether or not this will have staying power or it'll be seen as something of a transitional championship. But they only have, players like Bobby Portis, Bryn Forbes, and PJ Tucker as free agents. So the likelihood is that this team is going to reload in a big way and be looking for two straight. I do think, to your point, teams like LA, a fully healthy Denver Nuggets team, the Utah Jazz, Brooklyn, the Clippers are all formidable opponents and certainly could be champions next year. But right now, there's only one champion, and that champion's in Cream City.
Cream City, Milwaukee, Deer District. What an epic victory in the NBA Finals yesterday. Josh, we're not done yet. We'll continue this discussion about the NBA Finals between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns in just a bit. But for the Sports Desk only here on CNN Philippines, we still have with us today sports writer Josh Planos live from Nebraska. Josh and I have been talking about the NBA Finals. It was all Milwaukee earlier. Josh, the Phoenix Suns didn't go down without a fight, though. They started the series 2-0, but for a time in Game 6, it really looked like they finally grabbed the momentum again. And, we were like forcing to have that do-or-die Game 7. I thought even, okay, we're going to Game 7 here, but where did the Suns fall short in Game 6, Josh?
I think they fell short right away, Andre. Phoenix was terrible in that first quarter. They only had 16 points. Every offensive possession seemed really disjointed, and they seemed really overcome by the moment, frankly. DeAndre Ayton was 1 for 6. It was just a terrible opening quarter for a team that was on the ropes. But the story for Phoenix all night long was that of missed opportunities. Ayton played timid. He was afraid at times. Devin Booker, got lost for entire quarters, seemingly. Chris Paul had his moments, but, wasn't exactly the same caliber of player that was dropping 40 in games, around earlier. I thought Phoenix just overall lost the battle and the war on the interior, where Brook Lopez and Giannis really controlled the paint as they have throughout the series. And they had some bad luck, right? I mean, who would have thought that Giannis would have had that kind of performance from the free throw line? So, a lot of factors added up, and seemingly none of them were in Phoenix's favor.
I think Giannis heard Chris Paul say in a press conference that even Giannis was expecting a miss every time he heads to the free throw line. At the beginning of this series, many of us thought that the Suns were going to win a title. I personally did. They were off to a blazing start. They were up 2-0 before the Bucks took over, and that's all she wrote. Your thoughts on the overall performance, Josh, of Phoenix here in the finals? Because Coach Monty was even heard saying he was emotional after the press conference, saying it's so hard to get into the finals, and now they lost to Milwaukee. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I think they have a lot to be proud of, frankly. I know that, it's obviously devastating to go up 2-0 and lose 4 consecutive games, but this team also is making its first postseason appearance in a decade. So this is not a team that is accustomed to the bright lights of the NBA playoffs. This is a team that was really making its own path through, unfamiliar territory. They're understandably disappointed because, of course, this is probably their best shot at a championship, and they didn't get it done. But it's nothing to drop your head about. It's certainly an accomplishment to win your conference. Health was certainly a factor. But what's frustrating for them is they left critical elements of their DNA behind when they got up 2-0. They kind of abandoned corner threes. That stout half-court offense, went dry. They had a great regular season transition defense that was nowhere to be found in the finals. So it's both frustrating and a really good thing for the franchise moving forward.
Yeah, it's really painful for Phoenix fans. Earlier, we were talking about the historic performance of Giannis Antetokounmpo, but for the Suns, though, it was Devin Booker, who was just putting up those kinds of numbers. D-Book was averaging 28 points, over 3 boards, and 4 assists per game. He was even getting Kobe comparisons throughout the series, although he did say in a press conference to not compare him to Kobe. And this comes just months after LeBron James pointed out that Booker is probably the most disrespected player in the game after he missed out on that All-Star vote. What can you say about Devin Booker in this series? He may have had those games where he struggled, but D-Book is definitely a superstar in the NBA. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. I think he left no doubt that he's going to be a terrific player for years to come in the league. I'm sure that he'll be thinking about his Game 6 performance on his 20-hour flight to Tokyo, which, by the way, he'll be taking with Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. So that sounds like kind of an awkward flight, if you ask me. But he was phenomenal. He was just phenomenal throughout the finals. Nothing to sneer at. Unfortunately, he had to play 46 minutes in Game 6 with Drew Holiday and PJ Tucker draped all over him, which to me is probably like the worst way you could ever spend 46 minutes of on-court action. But he was phenomenal, and I'm really excited to see him, for years to come.
Now, I'm just asking my producer, how many hours is the flight from the U.S. to Japan? That's going to be a long flight. Imagine having Drew Holiday, Devin Booker, and then Chris Middleton on the same flight, traveling from the NBA Finals to play for Team USA. Okay, one of the heartbreaking things, Josh, about the finals loss for the Suns is that Chris Paul will have to wait a little longer, another year, for that coveted first NBA title, which a lot of his fans really wanted for him to get. And he really tried. Let's take a look at CP3's numbers. 26 points on 11 for 19 shooting. This is in Game 6. He also dished out 5 assists. Let's talk about CP3 for sure Hall of Famer. CP3, his effect for Phoenix. Let's talk about Chris Paul, Josh. Your thoughts?
It's devastating, right? I mean, he's played more than 1,000 career games, put up more than 40,000 minutes on his body to get here, only for it to unravel after going up 2-0 in the series. It was obvious that his hand was giving him troubles throughout the series. At one point, if you remember, late in Game 6, he just went for a crossover and just fell down and lost possession of the basketball. I mean, that is not what we've grown accustomed to seeing from Chris Paul.
Yeah.
It was obvious that he wasn't able to play up to his full abilities. And I really hope he gets another crack at a championship, because he's been a fantastic steward of the game, not just for the U.S., but for the entire globe. And I think deep down we'd all like to see him win one at the end of the day.
Again, it's still early, Josh. We just ended another great season in the NBA, Bucks winning in 6. But where do you see the Phoenix Suns next season? Do you think we'll see them again in the finals? Is that a long shot? Especially considering, again, what I mentioned about Klay Thompson coming back for Golden State. Then you got LeBron trying to recruit Damian Lillard and all the things happening in the West with Kawhi and the Clippers. Where do you have the Phoenix Suns? Do you think they'll be back in the NBA Finals next year, or is that a long, long, long shot?
I think it's a long shot, Andre. I know I just mentioned that earlier that the Western Conference is completely stacked. You're talking about a fully healthy Nuggets team, getting Jamal Murray back and the elevation of Michael Porter Jr. and of course, Nikola Jokic. The Lakers, I'm sure LeBron will have a say in who next year's NBA champion will be, the Utah Jazz, and, the Milwaukee Bucks, and Giannis might be waiting for him if they are able to get to the NBA Finals. But I think it's a tall road. And, unfortunately for Phoenix, it just doesn't seem like time's on their side. But no, none of us thought that they would be here today.
Yes.
So, they've gotten used to proving us wrong. So let's see if they can do it again.
Still props to what Coach Monty Williams and that organization has done with this team, developing DeAndre Ayton. For sure, he's going to get a big bag when his contract is up at the end of this season. Of course, Devin Booker, Chris Paul, as you mentioned. Josh, it has been a pleasure having you throughout the finals. Of course, we had Enes Kanter, we got Lee Ellis, with Jared, but you were consistent, like the Bucks here. Thank you, Josh, for joining us on Sports Desk. We will always have you. But before I let you go, let's have to find out first the answer to our quiz question of the day. And I will put you on the hot seat again, my friend. Again, the question I asked was, before claiming the NBA title this year, the Milwaukee Bucks last won an NBA title back in 1971. Now, which team did the Bucks face in the finals that year? Josh, I know you both weren't born yet in 1971, but do you know the answer here?
I knew you'd put me on the hot seat one more time, Andre. I think
one last time, man.
Baltimore Bullets.
Baltimore Bullets. Wow, that was a long stretch going to the deep inside the pocket, man. Well, you're correct. The correct answer. Your credibility is still intact, Josh. The Bucks swept that series against the Baltimore Bullets for 4-0. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, of course, was the finals MVP. Again, Josh, thank you so much. Regards to your wife. Stay safe, and hopefully we see you after this pandemic. Stay safe there in Nebraska. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Andre.
Again, we just had sports writer Josh Planos.